Many games dabble in side modes or game mechanics that try to shake things up. Some really fun and well blended into the core gameplay, and some that you wish weren't there and just try to get over with. I can actually use a game I made while I was in college for an example. Just for my Web 1 class, we had to make a game or calendar using HTML tables, two-dimensional arrays, and also some HTML animation. Most people in class would make their table-based game and then just animate a block floating around for no reason or a little GIF to the side to fulfill a requirement. I wanted to actually make the animation an important part of the game, so I decided to make a Minesweeper bullet hell game. It was a real challenge to build, and I really loved it. This is probably the first time my wife saw the excessively determined part of me. I call it determined, and she calls it stubborn, but whatever. I could have turned the assignment in with full points, but I was really enjoying making the bullet hell algorithm, and I didn't want to throw in the towel. I was extremely proud of the final result. I even made a little Easter egg for my friend who was playtesting the game for me.
Huge!
I love you, Daddy.
A few years later, I ended up showing this game to a friend of mine who designs games professionally, as well as a few of his colleagues in the Discord group. They gave me feedback that the game didn't really work. Minesweeper is a puzzle game where you're supposed to be systematic and cautious, and bullet hell games are hectic and twitchy. And they just didn't go together well, and just ended up being more frustrating than challenging. You might be wondering why I spent so long talking about one of my side projects when the title of the video is Moonlighter. Well, that is because Moonlighter also mixes game mechanics together, but instead of flopping on its face like my attempt, Moonlighter blends game genres in a way that is refreshing. You are a merchant who wants more adventure in your life, and the game opens on you going into a dungeon with a mop, of all things in hand, to get more loot and answer some questions about the dungeons. For the rest of the game, you're continually attempting to go deeper and deeper into the dungeons to get better loot and finish the story. The dungeons are very challenging, and are always ramping up with difficulty. One of the major potential problems with dungeon crawlers is that they can be very frustrating when you're banging your head against a challenging boss, or a long haul through a dungeon and failing over and over and over again. Moonlighter avoids this by breaking up the action with the other game genre mixed in, shop management. As you're delving dungeons and getting loot, you're bringing back the loot to your shop to try and bring the town back to life and get funds for better gear. Your shop isn't a throwaway part of the game either. There's real strategy about what items you put up for sale and how you price them. As you price items, your customers will give you a reaction for the price, letting you know if you're being swindled or being stingy. And your objective is to try and make your customers leave happy. Another thing that happens in the shop is if you don't go far enough into the dungeons, eventually people will lose interest in the same type of loot all the time, spurring you to challenge yourself more in the dungeon. There are lots of really difficult enemies here in Moonlighter, and having a long bout with any of them, you'll almost inevitably get hit, and sometimes die and lose all the loot you collected that run. However, getting upgraded weapons allows you to eventually one or two-shot most enemies so you can knock them out before they have a chance to get some damage on you. In fact, I completely missed that there were other armor types than just the headband until I was almost completely done with the game. So, for me at least, upgrading my damage was the main way to progress deeper into the dungeons. The weapon, armor, and upgrade systems are all very well integrated into both halves of Moonlighter. You need to get into the dungeon to craft new items and sell them in your shop. As you progress deeper into the dungeons, your town and shop grows as well. You can invest into a larger shop and invest in other shops to come and bring your town to life, which is absolutely necessary for you to get the best gear. It does a lot to build the world around you and make your actions feel more important because they impact the world around you as well. I will mention, however, that 3 of the 5 shops are much less useful than I'd like. There's the blacksmith, who's absolutely critical because he helps you craft weapons and armor, which, like I already mentioned, is how you're able to take on bigger threats and make it deeper into the dungeons. There's also the witch, who will help you make potions to heal while you're in the dungeons, as well as enchant your gear so you have even more health and damage. The other 3 are the retailer, the traveler, and the banker. The retailer is to make it easy for you to get the items you need if you're missing 1 or 2 items for a weapon upgrade, which isn't bad, but his items are extremely overpriced to the point that I don't use him much. It was much better to just do a quick run in the dungeon to get what I needed. The traveler sells you decorations for your shop that will make your customers give more tips, or let your store be open for longer. Then lastly, the banker is useful. The issue with him is that he comes in so late in the game and is only available once per in-game week. I was actually only able to use him once before I beat the game. I'm a pretty big fan of dungeon crawlers and roguelikes. Moonlighter is the most player-friendly roguelike I've ever played, to be honest. When you die in the dungeons, you only lose the loot that you were carrying, but keep your weapon and armor that you were using. So instead of being a pure test of skill for you to bang your head against for several minutes to a few hours, you're able to push yourself as far as you want, and then when the risk is too high or you filled your bag with loot, you can portal out and back to town to sell your wares. It's really refreshing for me to be sure. I've played many other roguelikes, and to be honest, the super punishing nature has always been a black mark on really good games for me. I have a full-time job and a family, so playing a game for 1 or 2 hours after kids are in bed is usually all I have. so it is really hard to get into roguelikes where you don't make much progress until you've practiced them for dozens of hours to be good enough to beat the entire thing in one go. With Moonlighter, it's really easy for me to play for an hour and feel like I'm making progress. In an hour, I was able to upgrade my weapon to the next level, or beat a dungeon boss, or upgrade my shop, and feel content enough to put the game down and make it even further the next evening I had time to play. The dungeons are still very challenging and have lots of cool enemies, but they don't artificially increase the challenge by making you have to do a perfect run for you to get any game progress, which I really appreciate. One more thing about collecting loot in the dungeon that I really liked is the inventory system. The deeper you get into the dungeon, the more rare and valuable loot you get, obviously. It's pretty standard for roguelike games. But as you get deeper in the dungeon, you also run out of space in your pack, and you have to start throwing stuff away, or selling them through an item you get for a really low price, which isn't great either. Also, there are times that you need to get really common and cheap items for your upgrades, or to make potions, like the red slimes. The problem is they take up a lot of space in your bag that you could use for really rare or expensive loot that you want to sell for lots of money, or because you need them for upgrades. The game handles this issue in a few interesting ways that are really engaging. Some items you find have enchantments or curses on them. Some of the curses require you to put the item on the top, bottom, or sides of the bag. Some curses cause the items to break if you take too many hits. And there's another one that makes it so you don't actually know what the items are until you end your run. The main drawback with curses, however, in my opinion, is that they don't allow you to stack items of the same type. So if you have like a stick that's cursed and a stick that's not cursed, you can't stack them together, and it takes up a lot more space. The curses force you to make interesting choices with your enchanted gear you find, because some of the enchantments allow you to remove curses. Sometimes you remove a curse so that you can stack items and make more space, or discover what a hidden stack of items is. Some other great enchantments will immediately send a stack of items back to your shop, or turn a stack of items into a copy of that item. Turning another stack of items into a copy is definitely the most useful enchantment. There are some items that you are always finding tons of and are really cheap and easy to find. For example, sticks. Sticks are sold for like 5 coins, but if you use this enchantment correctly, you can turn your pile of sticks into items that sell for 20,000 coins, or even more. The other way the game helps you with a full inventory is its secrets. Sometimes when you enter a room, you will see a sparkle coming from the black pits, and if you hop down, you can find a few different kinds of secret rooms. Some of them offer items, or an increasingly difficult room that offers greater rewards the longer you stay, or, the best one, a magic chest that you can fill and it sends everything home after you are finished. The last thing I want to talk about is the bosses. Each dungeon has 3 floors and then a boss. Each floor the enemies get more difficult, and at the end of each floor there's a pool you can use to heal yourself, and then a mini-boss or boss. The mini-bosses are fun and pretty easy to dodge once you figure out the patterns, and then there are the main bosses. So there's 4 of them, one for each dungeon, and there are special achievements for beating each of them without getting hit. And since the recordings you've been watching are actually for my second time playing the game, I decided to go for the extra challenge of beating them without taking a hit. Overall, it was a really fun challenge. Each of the bosses plays extremely differently from the others, but all of them were pretty fair and telegraph their attacks so you can dodge as long as you know what you're doing. The weapons I decided to run are a bow and some really cool gloves. They were the most fun to use, and also the most explosive for damage output. With the gloves, you're always up close and personal, and don't have a shield to block any damage, so you're constantly rolling around and trying to stay up close to get your damage in. It made it a little harder to beat the boss without getting hit, but it was really fun, and hopefully fun to watch as well. All in all, Moonlighter is a really great game. It's challenging without being punishing, and rewarding without holding you back. It took some risks mixing together dungeon crawling with some roguelike elements, and a merchant simulator, but I can tell you the risks were definitely worth it. Moonlighter is a cohesive experience that I really enjoyed and continued to keep me engaged and wanting more. It made me want to continue to challenge myself to clear one more room, and when I died I wasn't mad, because I didn't have to push myself that hard. I could have gone back to the shop with what I had. There are so many other nice touches and mechanics in the game that I didn't have time to talk about, but I truly loved my time with this game. It is pretty short, I finished it in less than 10 hours, but it was my second playthrough, so Moonlighter is very replayable and worth every penny. I give Moonlighter 9 oatmeal cream pies out of 10. If you made it this far into the video, probably means that you liked it, so please make sure that you like it, and if you'd like to see more of this kind of video review, please make sure to subscribe for more content. And one last special thank you to my sister Lisa for all of these awesome watercolor pictures you're seeing. You can follow her on Instagram.